RPG have come a long way from their humble roots.
So
Despite still being considered a somewhat niche genre, nearly every major game in recent memory has adapted some mechanic originating from an RPG. Loot, skills, leveling, loot, classes, loot, elementals, loot. A lot of games have a loot system today. Even so, traditional RPG, the turn-based RPG, remains comparably unpopular. So how do we see developers bridging the gap between traditional design and contemporary action? The answer is the RPG pause button. Before we can continue any further, it's important to define what I mean when I say a classic RPG versus an action RPG. In my humble yet completely objective opinion, an action RPG is one that plays in real time and is primarily skill-based, with an emphasis on practice and reaction. While numbers and strategy do play a significant role, there is no challenge that dexterity cannot overcome. Think of Dark Souls or The Elder Scrolls. Classic RPG may not play in real time and are primarily knowledge-based, with an emphasis on strategy and taking your time to plan your moves. Fast fingers are not a requirement here. Careful calculation is everything. Think of Fire Emblem or Persona. Classic RPG trace their roots to older generations of gaming, and tend to be most popular with those types of crowds. Action RPG have become more and more capable due to advancements in technology. They are considered contemporary game design, and as such tend to draw in younger, larger crowds. In the current video game market, action RPG are far more popular and sell far better than classic RPG. This is to say nothing of the quality of the games, of course, but currently we live in a capitalist dystopia where the creation of art is limited by the profit it can generate. Imagine yourself then, as a game developer. You have an amazing idea for the next big entry in your series, but you know your publisher is only going to greenlight it if it can turn a profit. According to them, this means pivoting from classic to action. So, how do you update your game to the contemporary style of design without alienating your loyal audience who much prefer the classic formula? Final Fantasy VII's command menu has rightfully gained a lot of attention. It offers the best of both worlds. To start, it's your basic action RPG, attacks, special moves, blocks and dodges, fairly standard for the genre. But at the push of a button, time slows to a crawl, and players are given access to a full classic RPG experience, with abilities, spells, and items. Here, players will expend bars to perform actions on a selected target. The bars automatically recharge based on the player's real-time interactions, mainly dealing or receiving damage. The command menu brings all of the complex number-based interactions of the original Final Fantasy VII into the remake's new formula. Granted, I'm assuming it's close to the full experience. I never played the original. I would have been -3 when it came out, and the game was rated teen, so it wouldn't have been appropriate. The command menu is the perfect example of what I am dubbing the RPG pause button. It consists of two things. 1. Time stops or slows enough so players have time to assess the situation, and 2. Moves are chosen from a menu and performed automatically when time resumes. This removes the requirement for players to aim, something classic RPG never required from their players. While Final Fantasy VII Remake may have generated a lot of buzz, it's not the only game to be using the RPG pause button. Persona 5 Strikers is Koei Tecmo's attempt at merging the turn-based battles of Persona 5 with the real-time action of the Dynasty Warriors series. Here, holding R1 will bring up your Persona's abilities, allowing you to choose one that's right for the situation. This, of course, brings along with it all the intricacy from the original game, like elemental interactions and persona leveling. And more importantly, executions. So is the benefit when you get to copy-paste an already completed system from a different game. Not that that is necessarily a bad thing. The combat alone could support this game, but the addition of a classic RPG system on top of that elevates it to new levels. For as much as this may seem like a new phenomenon, it's been around for quite a while. The earliest example that I'm aware of and I assure you I'm unaware of a lot, is Fallout 3's VATS system. Believe it or not, this is an example of the aforementioned phenomena. At the push of a button, gameplay shifts from real-time combat to a system where player stats matter more than anything. Fallout 4 kept the system intact, with one slight difference. Rather than stopping time entirely, it only slows, adding a slight sense of urgency and an extra layer of strategy, as the hit chance can change as characters move in and out of cover. Still, it remains slow enough that players have time to think about their moves before executing them. This is very similar to Final Fantasy VII, where Fallout 3 and Persona 5 Strikers pause time entirely. Also worth noting, Fallout uses a system where action points build consistently over time, extremely similar to Remake's recharging bars. Strikers, on the other hand, gives players limited stamina they can use to summon their persona, requiring them to exit combat entirely to recharge. Remake also has a magic system that functions much like Striker's stamina, only being recharged outside of battle. But this is only expended when using spells. Other abilities do not require magic. This is a lot to take in. What we can learn from our examples is a great method for fusing classic and action RPG. Utilizing the concept of the RPG pause button, players are given the freedom to swiftly shift between what was once two completely different genres. It is quite exciting seeing how advancements in technology and design philosophy have combined to give us a brand new gameplay experience. I'm excited to see how this concept might evolve in the future, and if other games are willing to implement the RPG pause button. With that said, I've been Quentiam. Stay safe, stay beautiful. I'll see you next time.